Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to Friday. You made it. You made it. This week was a super special one for me. I hope it was great for you all. I hope no one was stressed. No one had a massive conference coming up in their life that they're doing a lot of stuff for. JK, it's all with love. Welcome to Open Source Friday, a GitHub sponsored show that is here to highlight not only the amazing open source projects that we all depend on, but also the contributors, the maintainers, and then all of you, the awesome folks who are supporting open source. I'm super excited today because we're going to touch on a very complex but very interesting topics for all of you who are dealing with deployment, for all of you who have an interest on how you approaching CI/CD pipelines. There's a lot of tools out there. For those of you who live closer in the Kubernetes world, my hat is off to you because that is just layers of complexity that I'm lucky I get to use tools that I just click a button and I don't have to be concerned with trains and all those things. But that's what we're here to learn today. So today, I'm super excited to be joined by Christian Hernandez from Kargo. Before we welcome Christian, who is the head of Rel at Kargo, I neglected to tell you something super important, and I have to share it real quick because this is brand new, hot off the press. We have an opportunity for all of you who for yours truly and many others at GitHub who love this conference is at the same time as our conference, GitHub Universe. But we have an opportunity to give out to our community 2 tickets. So I would love for you to enter that giveaway, please. I'm going to go ahead and share where you can do that. So go ahead and do that, please. Get in that giveaway. It's a really great conference. I had the honor of speaking there, I think like 2 years ago. And the vibe is immaculate. It's really all that's great about open source happens at All Things Open. Regretfully, this year we won't be there, but we'll be there in spirit. And I hope that someone who is local to Raleigh or that has a way to get there on their own takes advantage of the opportunity and enters this giveaway. We're going to do it raffle style, so it's fair, right? With a little script. We'll do it so the machines decide for us. And we'll select the winner at the end of the Open Source Friday stream on September 20th. So give it a go, please. If you know someone that's in the Raleigh or North Carolina area, or someone that's just super psyched about open source and would love to go and can find their way there, please share that link with them. I'll go ahead and put it on the screen. And again, to clarify, Andrea would love to bring you all, and just they won't let me use the plane. I will send the plane for you, but I can't. So this is just a ticket to go into and enjoy everything that is All Things Open. I see that one of the fantastic speakers that's going to be keynoting All Things Open is here. Hey, Danny, thank you. If you want to go see Danny speak, you got to go to All Things Open. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Christian, I've been keeping you waiting long enough. Welcome. Thank you for coming to Open Source Friday, and I appreciate your patience. I forgot. I had to tell people. Giveaways are my favorite part.
Giveaways are important. Yes. No, absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad you took the time for sure.
Well, welcome, Christian. If you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah. So my name's Christian Hernandez. I am the head of community over at Akuity. I am also an Argo project maintainer, focusing on Argo CD mostly. And I'm also a maintainer of Open GitOps as well. So very, very excited to be here. And thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you. So I'm familiar with Kargo, right? I started to learn a little bit about the company. I'm going to completely kill this. Akuity, right?
Yes, Akuity, yes.
Yeah, all right. Bravo. All right. And just super excited. Every time that I meet a company that's actually working on a solution and putting out something that's open source and is so useful for so many, as a core tenet of their product building, I think is fantastic. So super excited to learn from you today. I hope that you are willing to give us a demo, because our community loves demos.
Yes.
And we can take it from the top, because I have many questions, unless you have a specific flow you want to follow. Definitely, let's give us a quick intro. That'd be great. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, no. And I actually did prepare a demo, so let's all cross our fingers for the demo gods there. I am going to share my screen here. So let's see. 1 second.
No worries. And let's see. And while Christian gets, I think we lost Christian there for a moment, but it's okay. He'll be back. Where are you joining us from today, folks? I see folks joining from India, from Brazil. Hey, hola, Eduardo. Thank you for being here. Folks, don't forget, if you're in North Carolina, please join this. And I hope that hopefully by next week I can make another announcement about another exciting giveaway, one that's closer to home. So I'm working on it, friends. I'm working on it. While Christian joins us again, I hope it wasn't like his internet just completely dropped, but I think he'll be back. The demo was a little bit too powerful, I suppose. I'd like to hear from you. So take a moment to tell me what was good in your week, please. I can tell you that I got a lot done this week. We have some planning going on for GitHub Universe. Have you heard of GitHub Universe? In case you missed that amazing promo at the beginning, it's our conference, and we hope that you join us there. There is also going to be amazing conversations about open source happening there. Shout out to the incredible team that's organizing an open source zone. So some of your favorite projects are going to be there. Hey, welcome from Toronto. Welcome, Germany, Sri Lanka. Welcome. Christian, did we break it? What happened?
Yeah, what happened? What happened is that my browser crashed as soon as I tried to share my screen. So let me try it one more time.
Let's do it again.
We're doing it live. So as you can see here, so tell me if you can see that.
Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Awesome.
Elevating cloud native. Go ahead. Go for it.
Awesome. Cool. So and let me move this here out of my way so I don't accidentally click on it. So as I mentioned before, I am the head of community, and I'm here to talk about Kargo. So hopefully we mentioned Kargo sufficiently enough to know why you're here, and really for the purpose of this presentation, it's going to be completely focused on cloud native and Kubernetes focused, right? And so before you throw any rocks or tomatoes at me, I'm actually talking in the context of Kubernetes and cloud native. So I'd like to make a quick introduction to here. My mouse isn't mousing. 1 second here. There we go. So the quick introduction of Akuity, right? So for just really quick, because we're a relatively new company. It was founded in 2021. So, but the impact of Akuity has been felt way before then, because the Akuity, the company, is the founders, Hong, Jesse, and Alex, actually created the Argo project. They were at a company called Applatics. They got acquired by Intuit, and inside at Intuit, Hong, Jesse, and Alex were the part of the team that created the Argo project. So Intuit was made a strategic direction to use Kubernetes for everything that they do. So they're using very, very early on. They're actually one of the early adopters of Kubernetes at scale. And so, but they wanted to adopt Kubernetes rapidly without burdening any of the developers. So essentially, the Argo project is basically a suite of tools that that help people onboard and deploy applications to Kubernetes in a user-friendly way, right? So they built the Argo project essentially with user experience like as their basis, right, as their guiding principle. And so so they took kind of all the lessons learned and best practices and codified that into a platform. So that's what Akuity is. And you know, the Akuity platform is based on the Argo project. But we have other open source tools, right? And one of them being Kargo, and which is why I'm here today, because it's you know, the popularity of Argo that typically overshadows a lot of the other tools in the ecosystem, the GitOps ecosystem, especially at Akuity. And so, so yeah, so Akuity, just kind of think of the creators of the Argo project actually founded the company, and so and created this other open source project called Kargo. So what Kargo aims to attack is create a more cloud native Kubernetes friendly version of CI/CD. And what I'd like to talk about is actually kind of take a step back and talk about CI/CD in general, right? Because we've been doing CI/CD for a long time. It's been really like on the first, you know, set of tools that everyone uses when deploying an application. Is the first, you know, other than the hello worlds, right, out there, what you first learn when you're developing software and developing applications is CI/CD, a method to be able to deploy your applications, to be able to see it. And it's always been kind of this thing of, you know, you build something, you package it up, and the way you package it up actually varies from language to language, right? Like whether you're using like Java, you're using like maybe a fat jar, right? Or if you're using Python, you're using like Flask or something, like you package it up somehow, and then you deploy it to your target. People always say VMs, but also it could be bare metal. The idea is the same. You know, you know, although virtualization is a newer technology than bare metal, it's the same thing. It's an operating system somewhere. It's a target operating system with all its dependencies installed, right? So you basically build something, you package it up somehow, and then you deliver it to VMs, just to keep this, you know, kind of relatively simple. And then this has been like this way for a very, very long time, until recently when Kubernetes came into the picture. We kept CI/CD, but we kind of like bolted on Kubernetes, like as like instead of VMs, like we kind of bolted on Kubernetes as a deployment target, right? Like we kept doing the same processes using a Kubernetes. So it's stayed pretty much the same. Actually, what we did gain was a convenient packaging system in containers. So now it did make things easier in that everyone kind of knows the packaging system is going to be a container. Whether you're using Fat Jar or using Flask, it doesn't matter. At the end, the DevOps engineer is like, okay, cool, I just have this one thing to manage now instead of having to know a bunch of other things. I just know a container. But it stayed pretty much the same, right? Like you build something, you package it in a container, and then you deploy it to Kubernetes. And this felt weird. It felt weird for a very long time. And it feels weird because the CI/CD process itself, that process is synchronous. It's a synchronous process, whereas Kubernetes is asynchronous, right? It's a declarative infrastructure management system, meaning that like you kind of give it a manifest, a set of instructions, like a deployment, right? Most people can conceptually have that deployment YAML on their head, right? I can maybe almost write it from memory. I've been doing it for so long. and Kubernetes just makes it true. You just it's almost like throwing it over the fence, right? You give it to Kubernetes and you just trust that Kubernetes does it. But that's asynchronous. It doesn't give you any feedback unless you query it and like, continuously monitor it. Like it doesn't, it's not built for that, right? Like it's mainly built to orchestrate that. So you have an asynchronous process with Kubernetes and a synchronous kind of method to deploy to it. And it's felt kind of weird. It felt disjointed, right? There are two fundamentally different ways of approaching how to deploy something into an environment. And actually, this is where kind of people, I think a big chunk of people that are implementing Kubernetes where they are now, there's very few that actually are to the next phase, is where GitOps comes into play, right? Where GitOps came in to really try to have a more Kubernetes or cloud native way of deploying applications, because there was this like disjoining of having that synchronous process and asynchronous process trying to work together. So GitOps kind of like sat there to kind of be that last mile delivery. So now CI/CD kind of just stayed relatively the same, but then now there's this kind of delivery mechanism where it's like, okay, like you just have CI/CD now, and then when you're done, you commit something to Git, and the GitOps controller, like Argo CD, will see that change and then make it true on Kubernetes, right? So you have like the source of truth that you have in Git, and then you have your running system in Kubernetes, and GitOps basically tries to reconcile if there's any differences, right? Basically make it true. A more cloud-friendly native way, right? Trying to leverage the declarative nature of Kubernetes. So that's kind of where, and this is actually where a lot of people that are like really far in their journey in terms of like Kubernetes and GitOps adoption. So people are here. Most people are probably here if they're using Kubernetes. If you are using GitOps like Flux or Argo CD, you're kind of here now.
Right.
And at Akuity, we dog food everything, essentially. Like everything that is in our platform, we actually use internally. And we saw a gap. We were doing some things that felt unnatural, because the more and more last mile that you're putting into place, like GitOps, that last mile deployment, the more and more you're pushing things into CI. So the more like complexity and stuff, you're pushing it over to CI. So what we say, or what we notice, not only us internally, but also our clients and our customers, we're kind of doing the same thing, and it felt weird. And it felt weird because the CI/CD really has like stayed pretty much the same. Mm-hmm. Right? We've been really like since we started doing CI/CD, it's stayed the same. And as technology evolved, we actually haven't really evolved CI/CD. We've been kind of just bolting on these solutions into place, and as an afterthought, because we thought we need to fit this thing into our current system instead of the other way around. Instead of like changing CI/CD to leverage everything that these new technologies are giving us. So we at Akuity were seeing issues, and we thought it was time to take a closer look at CI/CD. And really, what I'm trying to say is that there's something missing. We all of us are doing CI/CD wrong if we're doing it with Kubernetes. Even us at Akuity, we saw there was something missing. And what was let me tell you why something was missing, right?
Right.
So when you think of CI/CD, whether you're thinking about it conceptually, whether you're talking with a colleague, or whether you're whiteboarding it, you think of it as this like linear process. Mm-hmm. of like start to finish, right? You think of like, some build happens, it runs in an environment, you run tests against it. Okay, if that passes, then you move it to another environment. Maybe you run some more tests, and then you run it to another environment. And like conceptually, we think of it as this linear process, but really, reality is it looks more like this. It's a lot more complex, a lot more things that are happening in parallel, a lot of more things that are happening outside the scope of your actual CI/CD pipeline, like a hotfix or something. So there's multiple canaries running, multiple A/B deployments running, hotfixes. There's continuous tests, manual analysis. There's there's things that are just like running constantly, and it really looks like this, right? And so the reality is far from linear, and GitOps is really terrible in this type of design. The reality is that GitOps doesn't really work well with what we need it to do, because the reality is this. And so and it's really tough for GitOps. GitOps is really like the last mile, okay, I see something in Git, I see something change, I'm going to make that true. But in reality, a lot of things need to happen. And so what we realized is that, and we did it, and we'll realize that other people are doing, is that in the context of GitOps, so I made that in a little text here, right? So if I'm making all the Jenkins people mad, I'm saying in the context of GitOps, you're overusing CI. So CI is being overused to do the job of what CD does, and because we have always like glommed together the idea of CI/CD, we think of it as one process, but it's actually two distinct processes with two different goals, right? So if you think about it, CI, like you give it like the goal is like given a piece of code, it could be code or a manifest or whatever, like build me an artifact, right? It's really like short-lived type of processes that we chain together. It's really like it's really rigid and top down, so it's done. It does the thing, and when it's done, it's done. And it's suitable for like things like I said, again, building artifacts, repeatable unit tests, end-to-end tests, things like that. Things that have like a definite start and a definite finish, and we just chain them together, right? Where as CD, it's really given an artifact, whatever it is, can you roll that out safely? And it's indefinite. Right. It's definitely indefinite because like canaries, I know some companies that run canaries for weeks, if not months, collecting data, especially in very large organizations, especially, these large platforms, public platforms, social media, like those canaries could last for months sometimes, right? They're indefinite. And you're constantly monitoring it, continuously verifying it, and it's really not done. Even though you're in production, you're still kind of monitoring, verifying it. It's really not done until the next one starts. So it's really like an indefinite process. And it requires ultimate flexibility, because now you're taking, from CI standpoint, you're taking like little small chunks, versus CDs, you're looking at the application as a whole. You're looking at the application stack as a whole. So the scope is much, much larger, right? It's not your like individual microservice. It's not your individual configuration. It's the application and how it behaves as a whole. And, like I said before, there's hot fixes, rollbacks, A/B testing, very, very, very large in scope. And so the GitOps reality is really kind of looks like this, right? So going back to the reality, well, the GitOps reality is kind of like this. Like, again, that little CD part is only like that very last little bit where, like I said, GitOps for that last mile Kubernetes kind of deployment, cloud native is great. But what about everything before it? Well, everything before it now is just a bunch of scripts, a bunch of bespoke scripts, a bunch of custom scripting that varies from organization to organization, that varies from teams to teams, even inside from your colleague that sits right next to you, or in Zoom. I know we're all remote now, but like you have individual scripts that are doing these custom things because GitOps is GitOps. Like, as soon as that source of truth changes, it's going to roll out, and maybe you need certain things to happen before things roll out. Maybe you need, especially going from environment to environment, things change, and you need to, account for those anomalies that go in from environment to environment. And what ends up happening, like when you do like a promotion or something in GitOps, is you ping pong back and forth, right? Well, so what ends up happening, there's a config change, and you build something, and then some scripts run, and then it deploys it, to dev. And like, oh, we need to go to test. All right, let's run a bunch of like these custom scripts, do the git push or whatever at the end, and then let CD do this problem. So you kind of ping pong back and forth between your declarative, your CI system to build and customize all these things, and then your declarative system to where you're now like deploying these things. So so this is really what ends up happening, especially in a promotion aspect with GitOps. And then those who are really, really deep into GitOps, you have these like ping-ponging thing happening back and forth. So GitOps, it's great, it's fantastic, but what like tools like Argo CD, Flux, and other various GitOps tools, they're great, but they don't understand relationships between multiple deployment targets, right? It's one GitOps. The GitOps tools are like do one thing but do it very, very well. I think like Argo CD and Flux, they really dial into that philosophy. So it doesn't understand, by design, doesn't understand the relationships between, like, if your production environment has 500 clusters, it doesn't know the nuances between those two. Flux and Argo doesn't provide any sort of pipeline to orchestrate those changes. It doesn't write changes to Git, right? It only reads the changes from Git. There are spot features, tools like the Argo image updater. Flux has like an image promotion thing that they have, but it's not. It only concentrates on like an image, and it's a spot feature. It doesn't attack the problem holistically. And at its core, Argo CD and Flux, they don't write to Git. They just read from it. And they don't continuously verify updates. They basically just verify that it's been rolled out safely, and then they keep their hands off. So what does a GitOps promotion look like? So remember that ping-ponging back and forth. So what is actually happening, right? So if you think about it, a GitOps promotion is one or many image builds, and or one or many Git repo commits, and or one or many Helm chart updates. And those may have one or many things, right? That image update can have one or many configuration updates, and or one or many Helm updates, right? So there's like this thing everywhere, everything everywhere all at once, right? Like there's just like the dependency tree. There's a lot of dependencies for those updates, and so it gets worse, right? So microservices, as I mentioned before, it compounds those problems, because now, as a DevOps engineer, as a release engineer, you have an application as a whole to manage and take care of, like or like an SRE. But each one of those teams have their own independent lifecycle for each individual service, and those teams really only care about their own individual service, and they have different life cycles, and they have different release cadences and things like that. And so I talked to someone at KubeCon who's actually really adopted GitOps, and this person told me that actually a release got harder now with GitOps, because now I'm like herding cats. Yeah, because now I'm herding cats of different species. Now, like, since everything's reliant on Git and the source of truth, it kind of removed a little bit of the flexibility that they had before in doing promotions. So coordinating a release got harder somehow, and then with microservices being popular and stuff like that, it just compounded all these problems, just kind of all compounded with each other. So what we came up with at Akuity is a concept called continuous promotion. So we saw a missing piece in CI/CD, and we saw that, especially with GitOps, again, in the context of GitOps, the CI/CD was really, really stale and old, and very had an old way of thinking. And so we figured that there should be this little kind of in-between step. What this step needs to do is to constantly monitor changes in whatever repository, whether it be a Git repo, a Helm repo, a container registry. I think those are like the big three that you care about in a Kubernetes Kubernetes infrastructure. You're monitoring those changes, but not every change constitutes a promotion. So you need to build in rule sets and business logic into what constitutes a promotion, and what, if any, changes are promotable. Not every change is promotable. You should probably ignore things that, especially like a developer doing code changes, rapid
Right.
code changes, right? Like that image repository is going to be changing constantly. There's going to be a lot of noise. You don't necessarily care about all of them until there's like an actual release. And when there's an actual release, you don't necessarily want to promote it right away until other things happen first as a release manager. And so continuous promotion is this idea of being able to talk the language of GitOps, but also understand what the complexities of CI. So we have this continuous promotion where you monitor changes, and once the rule sets are in place, it'll make a smart commit to a GitOps repo. So a smart commit meaning that, okay, it knows information and knows context between environments, and it does it basically writes to Git and to do a promotion, and then it triggers, that'll trigger just naturally GitOps, because GitOps is continuously monitoring that GitOps repo. The GitOps then takes care of that last mile, and then the continuous promotion mechanism like verifies that deployment. So in case it needs to do a rollback, it can do a rollback, and then it has all the context of what was there before, so it can do a rollback. So there's no need to do like this custom scripting, right? You have like this business logic built in, and so being a software company, and us being engineers, a startup, us being engineers, we had continuous promotion, but we decided to build a tool for it, and that's what Kargo is. So Kargo is an open source tool that enables continuous promotion. So it is basically, right now there's integration built in for Argo CD as first class citizen, but is actually pretty generic enough to work with any GitOps tool. The idea, it's on GitHub, so the links will be posted later, but the idea is that it's completely open source, and it's a way to basically be that in the middle step of Kargo. So to enable some of that. So how does it work, right? So like I said, Kargo sits in the middle, just like any continuous promotion tool should, and there's things are happening, right? Whether it be a CI system, whether it be some DevOps engineer or platform engineer, I think this is what they want to be called now. So some change happens to either a configuration repo or a container registry in this example, right? Independent, like they all have their independent life cycles, but Kargo is detecting those changes, and based on those rule sets, it goes, oh, okay, well, you know, you satisfy these rule sets. I'm going to make an intelligent Git commit to the GitOps repo, and the GitOps controller, during its regular lifecycle, will detect that change. Kargo has the ability to trigger on-demand reconciliation, so you don't have to wait. Like Argo CD has a 3-minute timeout, so whenever there's a change in Git, you have to wait up to 3 minutes for it to see it. But you can trigger it manually, and that's what Kargo does to kind of complete the lifecycle. So once it does a promote of the change, though, very important step, that is it verifies that was successful. How do you verify it's successful? That all depends on you, right? So it's ultimate flexibility in terms of it connects to Datadog, it connects to Prometheus, AWS CloudWatch. The list is very, very huge. This is just some of the examples, but it's based on data, and it's based on data that you care about, right? It's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily rely only on the Kubernetes health, because the Kubernetes health is really just, is it up and running? And yes, and that means it's healthy, but your application is way more complex than that. And your application being healthy is determined on many number of things. So it'll verify it. Once it verifies it, it considers the promotion a success. And then when you promote it to another environment, it'll repeat steps 3 and 4, essentially taking the commit that happened and just moving that commit along the pipeline, right? So it no longer has to like rebuild an application. You no longer have to run scripts or anything. As soon as it's been verified, you can take that same commit and then just move it to different from environment. So like going from dev to stage is basically taking that commit that was in dev and just moving it over to stage. So
progressive.
Exactly. So you don't have to like there's no more ping ponging back and forth, because it's their business logic, the one that you wrote, whatever that is, everyone was going to have their own, already verified that. So it's safe to promote, and you can verify between promotions, right? So you don't have to just trust yourself the whole time. You can, move, verify, move, verify, and move, verify. So that's kind of how it works. It's it really is to provide ultimate visibility, right? So you have these artifacts that you care about, that you want to be able to promote in a GitOps friendly way, but there's no really good pipelining available, and so this is what Kargo actually does. And so I think TLDR, Kargo focuses on the delivery of the artifacts, while the GitOps controller focuses on the actual deployment of those artifacts. So I always like to make the analogy, and if anyone out there has a better analogy after they use Kargo, please let me know, because I like to use something that, so Kargo is like Amazon. So if you think about it, if you order like a bunch of furniture from Amazon, Amazon will take care of like the logistics and finding those pieces and packaging them up and putting them in a box and delivering them to your front door. But what you really get, it gets delivered on your front door is a series of boxes with a bunch of parts in them. And the GitOps control is more like TaskRabbit, where it's like, okay, well, like now I need to be able to deploy that, right? So basically someone comes and puts it together and puts it in my living room. That's that last mile delivery, right? That's that last mile. That's what Argo CD does, right? And so Kargo, think of Amazon. Argo CD or Flux, think of it as like TaskRabbit. That's the TLDR, delivery versus deployment. Kargo focuses completely on the delivery and sits in between the CI system and the CD system, CD/GitOps system. And so I think it's better just to show you.
Yes.
Yeah, and
let's do that. Yeah, let's do that. I want to see if there are any questions first.
Yeah, we can pause for some questions for sure
before we get to the demo. But I think, I mean, you just did an excellent job at explaining. Like, I got you. The progressive delivery, I got that. It's doing the higher levels of orchestration that when you have multiple pipelines, sometimes you can't do that. You set the rules and you have the checks. So it's not an automated process. You can go back, rollbacks. Got it. If anyone has any questions, post them on the chat, but let's get cracking. I'd love to see the demo.
Okay, so here we cross our fingers for the demo gods. And I actually recorded the demo, so in case something goes wrong, I can switch to the video. So
sounds good.
So I'm prepared, at least in that aspect. So let me escape out of this here. And so let me because my there we go. Because my thing crashed, I don't have my links up, so bear with me.
No worries. So I'm seeing it's like visual, right? Like that without the dashboard. I'm gonna wait for you to show us back.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm loving that it's a visual like pipeline.
Yeah. Well, let me make a little bigger, so just in case, or if you're like me, have trouble seeing now in our advanced age. So this is Kargo is made up of it's actually feature rich in terms of a multi-tenancy and RBAC and all of that. So that's probably beyond the scope of this presentation, but it does have enterprise features because, again, Akuity, we dog food everything, and we so we needed these features anyway, so we actually built it into the open source product as well. Once the open source is, so I have this pipeline, and the screen's a little too okay. There we go. So this is like kind of like an overview of this pipeline right here, and so we have these different environments. I have dev, test, UAT, and production, but production is made up of different areas, right? Like US East 1, West 1, US West 2, that sort of thing, right? And these environments correspond to Argo CD applications. So as you see here, there's a dev app and a production app here, and those then go into my environment. If I go over here, they're here. I'm going through different tabs, but since they're the same, the application is going to look the same. So you have, you can visually see, what's going on, right? So Kargo's, managing the lifecycle of promotion while or the delivery of those artifacts, while Argo CD is going to take care of the actual deployment of that. And so what Argo CD is doing is what Kargo is doing is tracking what Argo CD is deploying, essentially. And it has information like in the dev environment. I can see, I could probably hover over it. There we go. I can see which this dev environment consists of this Git commit, which is version 1.2.3, and this image, there we go, image, which is also tagged as 1.2.3. And it does that because it has these artifacts that are that I want promoted together. So this Git repo and then this image repository is what I'm kind of looking at, and I have information about those versions. And those rule sets are based on something that we call a warehouse, right? Where I'm tracking some of this information. I'll make this a little bigger for now. I'm tracking this Git repository here, and I'm tracking this image repository together. And I'm tracking them together because now I have these constraints here. So let me make this a little bigger just so we can just see for right now. See if I can get it into one. There we go. So here I'm saying, yeah, track this Git repo, but constrain it to releases that are greater than or equal to 1.2.3. So it doesn't matter who commits or how noisy that that Git repo is. I'm only concerned about when someone creates a release. That's the only thing I care about. So that team, they can have their own life cycle, they can have their own thing, and when they're ready to make a release, all they have to do is create a release, and that'll be available to me to be able to promote. At the same time, I'm tracking an image repository, and same idea. I'm looking for a release that's version 1.2.3 or newer. And so what ends up happening is now I created this rule set saying, give me things to promote that are only tagged for release, and only when these two things are tagged for release, make them available to me. So whoever's taking care of the image, their code lifecycle stays the same. How I don't have to worry about that. The configuration repository for the DevOps people, I don't have to worry about them being noisy or anything like that. I'm just looking for a specific release. Anytime there's a release ready, I want you to present those to me. And only when these two things are ready together, then present those to me. Once those are presented to me, then I can make the decision to promote them down the line or not. And so this is kind of like the rule set I was talking about. And and this is an array, right? I can add multiple Git repositories, multiple image repositories, multiple Helm repositories, and build those individual rule sets. Right now I have them the same, but you can have them, whatever makes sense to you.
So what are you calling a freight there? Like the freight assembly is sort of like the set of things.
Yeah,
set of instructions.
Well, the set of manifests, right?
Of the manifest, okay.
Yeah, so it's basically, freight is what we call a collection of manifests to be able to be delivered. So yes, that is actually, thank you for calling that out. And it's like, it actually makes us happy that like you made that connection, because yes, those two things together, when that happens, it becomes what we call freight. But so freight, it's just kind of our terminology. Just think of it as a collection of related artifacts.
Gotcha.
So collection of related, that's kind of what freight is. And then subscriptions is really like what are you listening for? What are you subscribing to? What do you care about? And then and these are the constraints that you're putting in. So we're in this environment, I'm looking for things that are 1.2.3 or newer. And then this is kind of like a visual representation. So I think instead of just going through a simple demo, I want to go through a use case demo, because I think it illustrates. Yeah, I think
real life.
Yeah, real life. I think it illustrates what the power of Kargo actually gives you in a GitOps environment. So remember here, I showed you this application. Make it just a little bigger because it just doesn't matter because it's just a dumb application. But let's take this use case where we want to add a feature to this application. So the feature is on the top right corner here. I want to add another link, and this other link is basically what I wanted to do is this other link. I wanted to read a configuration file from disk and display the information from the configuration file. And so that's actually it seems easy, and it is like a simple use case, but it's actually a little bit more complex than you think about. So if you think about it, here I already have a pull request staged here for the application update. So the application update, right? I need to create a new route called /greet, right? I'm doing this in Golang, so I need to add that HTML page. The HTML page does not exist, and I need to create a handler that reads a configuration file from disk. So let's take a look at the files on how that looks like. So first, I have the HTML, so I need to add that, and then I have the navigation bar, right? So I added the HTML file, the navigation bar here. The next is I'm adding the handler, right, /greet, right, because it's going to be a link. And then I need to create a new a new function here that basically what it does here, it reads a configuration file. So now this application is expecting a configuration file that doesn't exist currently in the environment, because that's Jira ticket or whatever, right? That's a new feature we're going to add, is reading a configuration file, and it reads it here, load configuration file. So I read that configuration file and load it. So relatively simple, but it has big consequences, right? Because if I go over here, so now this is the deployment repository. That was just code. Now I need to change how I deploy this this application. So so I need to touch each and every one of these environments, right? So first, the deployment has to change, right? So deployment now expects a volume mount, and then it expects this volume mount coming from a configuration file. And I need to create this configuration file, right? I'm using config map generator. Doesn't matter. It could be a standard config map, whatever. But basically, I need to add this greet.json, because that's what this application now is expecting. And I need to do this for each and every one of my environments. So I need to do this 5 times. So again, a relatively simple feature, but it has a kind of a big impact. Because if I deploy this application without the configuration, it's going to break the app. The app's going to return 500 anytime someone clicks on that greet. It's going to return 500. The application is going to crash, because those two things need to be promoted together, and they may or may not have the same life cycle. They may have independent life cycles, and so what we can do here, now this is where you pray to the demo gods. Let's go through. Let's say, okay, here, you know what, this looks good. I'm going to merge my own pull request for the application update. So let's merge that pull request, right? And so that goes off independently. Another team gets notified maybe a day later or whatever. Oh, by the way, this needs to the configuration needs to be updated, right? So let's merge that, merge those here, right? So they each have like their own, again, independent pipeline. If I go here, I have version 1.2.3. I have an image that is being built. This is kind of it builds it to the GHCR. Where is my packages? Yeah, here we go. So I have version 1.2.3, right, in GHCR. So like basically, as you can imagine, these have their own independent pipelining and testing. This is kind of like watching paint dry a little bit, because image builds takes a little bit. But the idea there is that now with Kargo, what I'm doing is I'm listening for these like new events. So let's we can. Oh, it's pushing. Okay, so we maybe wait another 30 seconds or so to see if there's no questions yet, but.
That's actually moving very fast. So you're
good. I know.
That.
I'm like, this is like well, I mean, it is, because like when I did a dry run on this, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to talk for 5 minutes, but it's actually moving faster than I expected. So that's always good. So when I refresh this here, look, there's a new latest version, and it has like that tag here. Kargo also has a refresh mechanism, but let's refresh it now on demand. And I refreshed and nothing happened, right? So here's a question. Here's a quiz. Why did nothing happen? Does anyone know? Oh, why did nothing happen?
Is it not the rules? I mean, do you have it configured where it's a manual refresh, or is it in the rule set that is what's missing?
It is. You're right. You're right. It is because of the rule set. And all I did was merge the pull request. That's all I did. I didn't do a release. So even though there was a change in the repositories, because of my rule sets that are just like, hey, I'm waiting for a release to be tagged 1.2.3 or newer, it's not going to release anything. And so this is kind of like they can have like here, see, VJ already said release tag is missing. So we already put those rule sets in place, and those can be independent, right? Those two teams do what they want. Me as a release engineer, me as the owner of this application, I want total control of when things get promoted. And so when they're ready, let's do a release, right? So this is another time where we want to pray to the demo gods, right? So like 1.2, actually forget, because like it's a regex, so like if I get this wrong, then I get it really wrong. One sec, code, come on. There we go. It's V. Okay. I always forget, is it either V or no V? So version 1.2.4, right? Because this is the newer version .4. Here, there's going to be release.4. Yeah, let's publish that release. And then for the configuration, right, let's create a new release. Again, let's do version 1.2.4. Again, 1.2.4. Publish release. So this actually takes, again, a little while because there's, again, GitHub actions that need to happen in order for this to be tagged as a release. You know, you still want to do the CI things, right? So, you know, I said there was something missing in CI/CD. I'm not saying you should replace CI/CD. You're still doing things in CI, right? You're still running, you're running regression tests, you're running unit tests, you're running linting, right, in your configuration, and things like that. There's actually a great question in the chat, because you know, as we're waiting for this to be released.
About coexisting or the connecting with private repos?
Yeah, private repos. So yeah, so the private repos, it does. So you can connect, you can give it to give it credentials, and Kargo will be able to write and read from private repositories. Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for the question. Sorry, I can't say your name. It's a little glitch here on LinkedIn. So I appreciate your LinkedIn user who left the question.
So yeah, no, thank you very much, VJ. And so the it's LinkedIn user. Thank you, LinkedIn user. It could be VJ, we don't know. So again, the demo gods are being kind to me today, and this release got released fast. So let's refresh this. We don't have to wait. And now I get another release. So you notice how I got this here because of my rule sets. I got 1.2.4 for my image and 1.2.4 for the configuration. Now, me as a release engineer, as a SRE, I can promote these as one unit, right? I didn't have to worry about coordinating everything, whatever. My business logic was there to save me, right? And so how do you promote this? Very easy. I click on promote, the little button, and I choose which bundle, I guess, for lack of a better, we call it freight. But I don't want to overload terms here. These just like, I guess, manifest bundles or artifact bundles. So I want this one here. I click yes. And what's end up happening is that, I think I need to refresh this page because there is a bug. There should be, I didn't click yes. Yes, there we go. So notice how it goes into a promotion phase. So what ends up happening is that it'll actually, if you see here, it says progressing. So what Kargo ended up doing is it made a git commit to the deployment repo, and then it triggered Argo to do a sync. Right. So if I actually look here at the deployment repo, you see here there was a new commit that happened, right? And so and once that sync happens, it verifies it. So there's a verification process that happens. So again, you can connect it to Datadog, Prometheus, OpenTelemetry. It's completely flexible to what you're verifying. Once that's verified, it'll give me a green heart. It looks like this is still progressing. Deployment's still rolling out. So yeah, so so it'll actually wait for that rollout to happen for Kargo, right? So Kargo is really integrated with Argo CD right now, to where it's waiting there. So while that's going, actually, I want to show you something. It's like, okay, well, what if I want to promote this new thing directly into production? If I click here, I'm not able to click on that freight to promote it because it hasn't passed through your pipeline. I have rule sets in place saying only when the providence has been verified in the downstream stage can you promote this up to upstream. But if you need to, let me cancel out of this. But if you need to hotfix, you can click on this, the little hamburger menu here and manually approve it too. So it gives you the flexibility where it blocks you. But if you absolutely need to do a hotfix, because we're all doing hotfixes, it'll roll that out. And so this is done. So if I go back to my app here, I refresh this app. Now I have this /greet. I click that, and it says, and it reads that configuration file. My application is working, but even though I made a commit to that Git repo, it doesn't affect my other environments, right? I'm refreshing here in case anyone sees it. And so it's only in the dev environment, and I can visually look at it, but also a verification, like I said before, a verification took place. So the verification with green check mark, I can then start progressively going down the pipeline, clicking yes, and going down the pipeline. And again, same thing happens. Git commit happens. And then going back to the test environment should be done by now. Yeah, so that's done. Verification is taking place, but I think since the verification is going, that means yes, that means the test environment now has a /greet, and then it has, now it's in the test environment, right? I'm reading different configuration files.
Okay.
Yeah, reading different verification files. So so here they have different names like lazy squirrel and jittery squid, so you can kind of at a glance see what's where. Let's just keep going down the pipeline. What's really cool is all of these have been like, I can target each individual ones. And so once, let's check to see if, yeah, I think
now you're doing it manually for demonstration purposes,
yep.
right? But you can set a rule set where this is
automatic. Yep.
Automatic. Okay.
Yeah. So actually, so what we typically suggest is automatically deploy to dev, just so you can see your changes, right? Because it's dev or whatever lower environment, just because like you don't want to do rapid development. But you can put in rule sets to say, you know, hey, if it passes your verification, like depending how robust your verification is, if it's really robust, maybe you want to, you know, if you're the Netflixes of the world, you want to just go straight on through if it passes, right?
Right.
And so I have here UAT again. I mean UAT. What's cool here is like it typically Argo CD, like you'll have different application definitions, even though it's the same application, but you're going to different environments. So you would have to like update those manually is kind of where I'm getting. So you can do that here, right, by clicking the target here, or you can do, you know, a push, right? So deliver. So this will deliver to all downstream processes. So whether it be one environment or many environments, right, or one environment with many endpoints, I can just do it all in one. All in one go, right? As Andrea, as we say, todo un jalón, right? All in one go. You can push that into the production environment, and it'll it actually is. Sometimes it's too fast and we can't catch it, but it looks like it did sync a few seconds ago, and so it did finish. And if I go here, go to my production environment, that's ta-da, it's there. Click on, and now it's in production. So now you have this whole
Nice.
pipeline. What's really, really cool is now that Kargo understands the relationship between environments going back and forth, I can actually go, well, you know what? Like if, you know, you get a call early in the morning and say, hey, you know, that application was great. We weren't actually ready to roll it out into production. We actually, we roll it back. You know, we were saving it for the announcement later this week, right? So you get that call at 3 a.m. And so you can just come here and say, you know what, I'm going to go back to this version. And you click on that. And that's all you need to do. Kargo understands the relationship between these two between these two, I guess, freight, right? Like whereas like this freight was this version, but now it's this version, and it looks like it's already rolled out. And if I refresh this page, I go back to, oops. Come on. Oh, it's still rolling out. Yeah. Ba-ba. I can just do this on demand. Synchronize.
Very cool. While you're wrapping up there with the demo of the rollback, like I want to make sure that we get to how people can contribute to the project, and let's talk a bit about the community.
So let's talk going back, so that way we don't run out of time. So I'll debug that later. So the so really to get involved, it's an open source project, like I said before. You know, we're an open source company, open source first, right? It's in our DNA. And so we had this tool and we decided to release it open source. So if you go to github.com/Akuity/Kargo, that is the that's where you can get hands-on Kargo. It's ready to deploy. I'm using the open source version right here. And our community is, we have a Discord channel where the community sits there. We talk a lot about Kargo, but we also talk about Argo and GitOps in relation to continuous promotion and how Kargo can help out. We actually have Flux users. I actually have a Flux demo. If we had more time, I would actually show the actual how Kargo works with Flux.
Nice.
So we have Flux
that was,
users.
I think,
yeah,
that was one of the questions. Like, could it coexist? And yeah, I see it. It's like a complementary technology, right? Like it's not either or.
Yeah, it's not either
that was
or.
Actually somebody's question. Yeah. Could
Yeah.
it coexist? So
yeah,
you have to have your back, Christian, and show that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And get involved. We're open source. These are basically the two best ways to get involved with Kargo and Kargo project and moving the project forward. We're in version 0.8.7 right now. We're getting ready to do a full GA release. There's a lot of work to be done, so we're definitely looking for other contributors. We already have outside contributors to Kargo already, so it's not just Akuity. There's other outside contributors as well. So yeah, that's it. And
awesome.
thank you.
No, thank you. This was super informative. I definitely learned a lot more about complex deployment than I've ever had. I don't think I've dug this deep into, but I totally see how this can be a game changer. There are solutions like, folks have talked about Flux, and so like the Jenkins people won't come after you.
Yes.
But if you can, like, in a brief few words, say like what is, I guess, the key differentiator between Kargo and all these other platforms, especially like what we just saw in the tenants and multi-environment orchestration. I think it was super obvious, having the advantage of the freight, or at least not confuse the artifacts, right? Like, but what would you say, like, is the key differentiator between this and other platforms that might already be out there?
Yeah, so there is another tool that does something similar called Telefonistica. That's actually by Wafer. That does get commits right back. So really the big differentiator between Kargo and other tools kind of like in the similar space is that Kargo takes a look at the problem holistically instead of just doing spot features, because it's more than just doing a git commit. It's doing a series of related things together and doing them as a whole, and then continuously verifying it. The verification for us was very, very important because it's more than just Kubernetes health, right? It's more your application health. Your application has specific things that it needs to take care of.
Super interesting. Super interesting. I think we can take one question and I'm so sorry. I like way over the time. I was like 45 minutes, Christian. But I wanted you to make sure. And honestly, like, I appreciate you taking the time to explain like the current state of how it works, why the gap was there, how the company identified the need, and then took us through that whole journey of the tool itself. I think that's awesome. But I think this is actually a really important question from Rahul, because that's separate conversation, right? The layers of security, right? Like, so can you restrict who's actually triggering deployments to higher environments?
Yes.
Rahul, thank you for that question. Great question.
And it was very important to us as well, because like I said before, we were using these tools internally. And yes, there's a rich RBAC system built into Kargo, like an enterprise RBAC and SSO system where you can basically hook it up to your SSO system, get those users in and assign different roles to different users. So there's a rich RBAC system built into Kargo. Use it today, like it's already built. And it was like one of the first things that we did with Kargo when we released it. It was like it's been there for a while. So Raul, for your answer to your question is yes, you can, for sure.
That's awesome. Like, what scenario would you have like different layers of, I mean, even for people that are doing, like, I don't know, somebody's trying to implement some, like, doing A/B testing, and like, so those folks need a particular set of like privileges that you like you can decide like what they have access to actually deploy. That's really interesting. Super, super interesting. Thank you, Raul, for that. Christian, this has been super informative. We share the Discord, we share the repo. Folks, don't forget to go by and start the project. Go ahead and give it a go. Like try it out. Join the Discord so that you can interact with folks. And it sounds like there's a lot more happening there, like a lot more deeper conversations. What if people want to get a hold of you, Christian? How can they folks?
Yeah, so the best way to get a hold of me is probably on my LinkedIn. So if you I think you have my LinkedIn, you shared that in the chat. So my LinkedIn is there. I also am available on GitHub. So if I so that's my GitHub and Twitter X handle is Christian H814. That's Twitter X or GitHub. So either one of those two, I'm there, and I'm also on the Kargo Discord. So I'm there trying to make the project the best it can be. So if you want to probably ask me Kargo questions, that's the Discord is probably the best way to get a hold of me.
That is awesome. I mean, I love it. I think we're seeing the way of the future here. That in between was missing for a very long time, and it's great that this tool has come to fill the gap. And it's open source, folks. It's open source, so that's amazing. Christian, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Are you gonna be somewhere next that we can like share with folks? Like if you're gonna be doing demos or I don't know if the company's gonna be in any conferences that folks can reach out.
We'll be at KubeCon, ArgoCon. So ArgoCon is probably our biggest conference, which is co-located next to KubeCon. So if you're going to KubeCon North America, I'll be there like literally the entire week. So KubeCon North America. We're also joining GitHub Universe later this year as well. So we'll be there, at least a handful of us. Our headquarters is in Northern California, so it's like a short drive. So
I love that. Well, we'll have to link up then, so we can maybe take a look at that, like using demo in Flux and maybe some other tools that folks might be more familiar with, so that we can show the possibilities within the
absolutely.
New vein. That'd be great. Let's do that. Thank you for being here, Christian. I appreciate you. And thank you for everyone who joined us and asked the very thoughtful questions. Honestly, I'm super impressed with how engaged I was with this. Typically, this did not appeal to me because I don't live in this world, right? There's a lot of folks that were super pumped about it, and they're like, let's talk about multiple pipeline orchestration. It's not my world, but you made it super dynamic, and I appreciate it.
That's good to hear. It's good to hear.
Thank you. So thank you, Christian. We'll see you next time. Hopefully, maybe we can get together in Universe and record some content for this amazing
awesome.
Trip.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who joined. Don't forget to please go by the Argo open source project. Drop a star. We're really good at that here. Get involved if this is your jam. And even if it's not, listen, I'm now more open to the possibility of trying some of this. So definitely go give it a go. I appreciate you all that are going to give it a try. Conrad, what's up? Let us know how you like it. Go ahead and reach out to Christian, join the Discord, or even tweet us at GitHub Community and let us know what happened if you actually gave it a go as a result of learning about this here today. Folks, don't forget about the opportunity for ATO so that you get to see an amazing, amazing lineup of speakers and talk about all things open source. See what I did there? The name is All Things Open. This is a great opportunity for you to go and be even more of a part of that open source community that we all love. So we will see you next week. I think next week we have, I have it on the Intel, so you'll see it on the small scroll. Wow, the name escapes me, but it's actually, we have an interesting, the next couple of weeks we have super interesting and diverse projects. There's going to be some AI and some LLM focused things coming up on Open Source Friday, which we're excited. Also, huge shout out to all the folks from the different countries and communities that join. I appreciate you all. Thank you. Someone asked about multiple time zones, and I love to be able to do this in hours that are more conducive for folks in Europe and everywhere else. So please let us know. Do tell me that in the comments. Post about it so that I can go back and ask the powers that may if we can start doing some more things that are a little bit more inclusive of other time zones. In the meanwhile, if you didn't catch this, or if you know someone in I don't know, in the Australia that's sleeping right now and you think this might be of interest to them, Please share the Open Source Friday playlist from the YouTube channel of GitHub. And don't forget to give that channel a subscription so that we can continue to put out this type of content. I appreciate you all. Don't forget to give Kargo a go. Have a great rest of the weekend. Take the rest of the day off. This is why I don't get the plane. And have a great time. Thank you so much for supporting open source. I appreciate you. Stay tuned. Watch this little video because there, the question of who's going to be here next week will be answered. Appreciate you all so much. Thank you for being here.